Tell me when you're ready.
Cool. Helen, thank you very much for joining us on this platform. I really appreciate that. Just
Congratulations.
for our followers, this is Minds of Good Health platform, and what we're trying to do is to raise awareness on depression. We're trying to say to people, depression is real, and we provide venues and avenues for those who are battling with depression. And really, it's a pleasure and a privilege to have you on our platform and to just have a chat about maintaining mental health during this epoch time. Um, Helen, just before we start talking about deep stuff, mental health and all that, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe just some of the things that we don't really know. So, I mean, what do you enjoy? What's your favorite time of the year? Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, what I enjoy most is my grandchildren now. I'm a granny, and I've got a little girl and a little boy. And the little girl is very like me. So she's a strong woman who likes a little bit of a fight now and again. So we butt heads, but we're having a very good time together now because we've got a joint project and
Yes.
we are decorating her little brother's room.
Wow. That's
We're
nice.
having great fun together. So, I just enjoy being with my grandkids. That's just
Yeah.
one of the gifts.
Wow.
They say all worthwhile having children when your grandchildren come along.
Yes, 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 yes. Well, that's fantastic. Helen, we are
Mm.
facing this monstrous COVID-19, and it is hectic. It is hectic. Um, and a lot of people are having difficulties financially, spiritually, and I think most importantly, from my perspective, is mental health issues. And I thought, well, it would be great to have someone like you just motivating and tell us how one can maintain mental health during this time.
Look, I think it's very, very important to discuss mental health issues openly and not to have any taboos about mental health. Because if you've got flu, diabetes, cancer, heart disease, COVID, whatever it is, it's a condition
Yeah,
and you have to face it and you have to deal with it.
yeah,
Mental health is exactly the same.
yeah,
And it's not something to run away from or hide about. Anybody who's read my book will know that I've been very, very open about
yeah,
those kinds of issues.
yeah,
My great grandmother committed suicide because she suffered so badly from depression. That was kept away from us as children, but I eventually found out about it when I read my grandfather's memoirs.
yeah.
And he was only 7 when his own mother committed suicide from depression, which was a very, very tough thing for him. And he writes about it in his memoirs, and it was very helpful to me to learn about
Mm,
that.
mm,
Then I myself had 2 very bad episodes of postnatal depression, which is a very particular form of depression located in a woman's hormones
yeah,
and what you go through biologically and hormonally when you have a child. So this is supposed to be such a wondrous thing in your life, but some women like myself went through terrible, terrible postnatal depression. And you feel so bad about it, you feel so guilty because this is supposed to be such a joyous time and you
yes,
feel as if you just want to die. And of course, I was very open about it. Fortunately, I have a very supportive husband, and he was incredibly helpful. And I went to seek medical help and advice, and I was put on medication. But for both my postnatal depressions, with each child, I had postnatal depression. It took me about 18 months to come right.
mm,
So that's a long time to spend 3 years in a depression if you add 18 months and 18 months.
yes,
So there is definitely a streak of depression in my family. With me, it manifested in postnatal depression. My husband's also suffered from very serious depression in the past. So depression is something that is real, that happens to people. It is no indictment on you. It's not that you did anything wrong.
yes,
Life is a difficult place. Life is a very difficult place. And for intelligent and sensible people, and sensitive people who care about other people, it's actually quite normal to go through an episode of depression in your life. And it's critically important not to run away from it, not to hide it.
Yeah.
Speak to people that you love. You may not even recognize it. The problem with depression is often that the person who is depressed is the last one who realizes it.
Yes.
Because what they say is, no, the world is so terrible, and I am such a bad person, and things are so awful, and no one's going to convince me that it's otherwise, because you do not realize that you are depressed.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I think that is really pivotal for people to first realize that, well, there's something fundamentally wrong with me. Not that I've done anything wrong to feel this way and to have depression or any mental disorder. So personally, I battled with depression. I knew that there was something fundamentally wrong. And I went to seek for help. And I was really fortunate that I had really good friends around me who helped me to start seeking help and maintain my mental health. And I really think it's important during this time for people to come forward and say, look, I think I'm suffering. I need help. I need help. But there are many places around. There are many people who are open to talk and assist those who are battling with the mental illness and depression to that extent. Helen, you spoke a little bit about a taboo, that we shouldn't make this to be a taboo issue. And unfortunately, in my experience, because I started this, I started as a project, and now it is an organization. And I found that there was no help really in South Africa. People talking about mental illness. We only hear about depression when a celebrity commits suicide. So how do we then move forward and making sure that as a society, um, the issues of mental illness and depression specifically are not a taboo subject? How do we make sure of that? How do we implement some practice or things to make sure that this thing is not a taboo?
You know, that's why I've been very open about my own history of depression and my family history of depression, because there's nothing to hide. It doesn't make me a bad person, and it doesn't make me a person who can't hold down a job. And it doesn't in any way affect the way I function in my life now. It very much affected me when I was in a depression. But you get help if you're open about it. You get well, just like you get well from flu, even though the worst thing about depression is that you don't ever think there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
This is this long, dark tunnel, and you never, ever think you will ever see the light again.
Yeah.
But you do. And life puts you down, but there are ways that you can help pick yourself up if you go and seek for help.
Yeah.
And that's why I've been very open about it. And that's why I think that people need to be open about it.
Yeah.
Because to pretend you're out there always coping with the world and everything is nonsense.
Yeah.
We don't always cope with the world, and no one does. And no one who's honest tries to pretend that they do.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel very strongly about these issues.
Yeah.
And the way that you can make less of a taboo is to be quite open about it. Like people were open about getting HIV and AIDS. And people are open about getting COVID. I mean, this taboo about COVID is also complete nonsense. You know, you get COVID, you get ill. We know that it's a dangerous disease. We know how to deal with it. We know you have to be very careful and wear a mask, but I've taken my mask off. Here's my mask, because we aren't sitting face to face.
Yeah.
The bottom line is that illness is something that you don't hide away.
Yeah.
That you are absolutely honest about, and having a mental condition is like having diabetes or having a rash or whatever you might have.
Yes.
You've got to deal with it and you've got to face it.
Yes. Helen, thank you very much for sharing your a part of your story. Really, a couple of months ago, I spoke to Kosi Gianni and Success, and I always say that it is absolutely helpful when you hear from a public figure when they share their story and share their testimonies, how they have overcome this and how they want to everyone to be open about this. I mean, I don't know who will be listening to this, and I don't know what's their situation, but this is really helpful for me and really encouraging because when I came out of depression, I only heard it was just women who are suffering from depression, let alone a young black man, South African Zulu man battling with depression. I mean, I've never heard of that. I've never heard of any Zulu man battling with depression, but this is helpful. And this is a helpful platform for people to come forward so that they can get help. So this has been an absolutely privilege and a great time to just chat with you about maintaining mental health. I really appreciate that. Any last remarks, encouraging words to South Africans during this time?
Chris, the one thing that I really do believe is that many people go onto drugs because they are self-medicating their depression.
Yeah.
They are feeling so terrible about the world, about their position in the world, about their position in society, about their peer affirmation, about themselves, and they start self-medicating, and especially with DACA.
Mm.
They feel a lot better about the world and they think, okay, things are better now. And then they become dependent. And it actually doesn't fix the problem, it makes it much, much worse.
Yes.
And when people are too embarrassed to admit that they've got a problem, so often they turn to drugs, which really aggravates it.
Yes.
And if I can make one plea to people, if you started down that route of using even recreational drugs to cope with your depression or to cope with your feeling of rejection, don't go down that road. Rather seek professional help, because drugs, especially if you have a mental condition, can trigger serious psychosis.
Yeah.
Serious psychosis.
Yeah.
And then you are in a completely different space. And sometimes drugs can even trigger irreversible conditions, such as serious schizophrenia. Now, there's nothing to be embarrassed about any of those things either. They are conditions. But the bottom line is, rather face the fact early, go and seek professional help, and don't try to self-medicate.
Wow. Yeah.
Get a
Yeah.
doctor to help.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you very much, Helen. Really, really appreciate your time and your motivational words to me and South Africa at large. Really appreciate your time, Helen. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Chris, I just want to say I really respect you as a Zulu man, particularly for being so open and honest about it, because there's all these kinds of myths about how men have to be so strong and how men have to be this and men have to behave like this and real men don't cry. That's complete rubbish.
Yeah.
Real men feel just as much as any people, and especially really good, sensitive, honorable men like my husband, for example.
Yeah.
They also feel fundamental things. And life is tough for them as it is for anyone else. And this whole thing about the big macho man who's never depressed is dangerous.
Very
It's an
dangerous.
illusion.
Yeah. Yeah.
So no one must fall into that trap.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true, Helen. I mean, I felt, I remember going to Newcastle, and I was really down. I was really down. I mean, many people know my story. And I remember my uncle taking me off the rope and telling me to have a drink. I must man up. um, and that's how I dealt with it, and I didn't understand. And coming back to Cape Town, really good friends of mine suggested that, Chris, we think that you are battling with depression. So I went to see a psychiatrist, which they are very expensive. very expensive. So I paid a psychiatrist. I went to a clinic, came back, and I thought, well, why not start something like this? Because what we do here, so we go out, we raise awareness of depression, and we have people coming in. So I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, but the organization actually pays for people to seek those treatments and everything, and we pay for that. We pay for that. So
Oh,
I don't yeah.
absolutely wonderful. But you see, the advice that your uncle said, have a drink, man up,
Yeah.
is precisely the wrong advice. Because you can sit there and get drunk and feel that your problems have gone away for
Yeah.
that 2 hours, 3 hours that you drunk. But when you get sober, believe me, they come back. Rather deal with it at the root.
Yes.
And don't try and blot it out with alcohol and drugs.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely true.
Getting drunk is not a manly thing to do. It's a
Mm,
coward's way out.
mm, very true. I appreciate your wise words, Helen. Thank you so much. Thank you for so much for giving us a bit of your time. You know, I know that you are very, very busy, so I really appreciate that you made time for this platform.
It's such a pleasure. And as a person who myself has suffered from severe depression, I always try to give back to help
Yeah,
anybody else who
yeah,
might be in the same place.
yeah. All right, cool. Thanks, Helen.
Well done.
Chat soon.